Welcome back to Dalet Amot shel Halacha. En lo Kadosh Baruch Hu be'olamo ela arba'a Amot shel Halacha bilvad. In today's class, we're going to be doing part 33, and this class will be the completion for Siman Reish Tzadik Tet. We have completed the whole review for Siman 299. Be'ezrat Hashem b'leneder, we're going to start learning a new chapter, a new Siman, in Siman Reish Ayin Aleph, that's 271, which speaks about the halachot of Kiddush on the wine, and there are 17 halachot. But remember, as usual, whenever you're doing the Shulchan Aruch with the Ramah, you have the Mishnah Berurah, the Bi'ur Halacha, the Shar Tzion, and also you have to learn the Amudei Hora'ah, which is Rabbi Dahan Shlita. So Bezrat Hashem, we're going to get back into that in the following class. However, for today's class, we want to see a few points. That if a person, after Shabbat, which goes into a regular weekday, because we'll see you have after Shabbat, which goes into a Yom Tov. So there's two different concepts. If it's after Shabbat, which is going into a regular weekday, and a person wants to do Malacha, and he didn't daven Aravit yet, where he didn't say Atah Chanantanu, or he didn't do the bracha of Havdalah on a cup of wine, in order for him to be able to allow to do Malacha, he has to say Baruch HaMafdil Ben Kodesh Lechol. One more time, Baruch HaMafdil Ben Kodesh Lechol. In English, blessed, basically we're blessing Hashem. Blessed is Hashem that separates between the holy and the mundane. Now this is said after Shabbat. This is very important to educate our wives, our mothers, our fathers, our children. Anyone we know that is not religious, a lot of times, either they don't get a chance to do Havdalah for whatever reason, or before they're going to do Havdalah, they're going to come to do Malacha. But they don't know that even if the stars came out, it doesn't mean Shabbat is completely out for them. According to the letter of the law, meaning according to the Torah, you're right, Shabbat is out. Nevertheless, the Chachamim went out of the way and they said it is asur for a person to do any malacha until he says Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kodesh Lechol. So therefore, as a father or a brother, if you know you're the one that is doing the Havdalah on the cup of wine, and you're coming home late, and when you walk into the house, you see the mother or the wife or the children, they're already doing things which is against halacha, you have to make sure you educate them to say these words, Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kodesh Lechol. And only then can they go ahead and start doing malacha. That is point number one we're going to see today, Be'ezrat Hashem, in Rav David Yosef Shlita's book. Point number two, it is a little bit different if it's after Shabbat and it goes into Yom Tov. Over here we spoke about after Shabbat is moving into a regular weekday. From Saturday to Sunday. Over here is after Shabbat into Yom Tov. It's from Saturday into Sunday, but the Sunday is Kadosh. It's Yom Tov. So therefore, if you want to go ahead and you want to do Malacha, now what kind of Malacha? Malechet Ochel Nefesh. If the wife wants to start cooking, she wants to do from fire to fire. She wants to go ahead and she wants to light the candles. She's not allowed to do it. She first has to say, Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kodesh LeKodesh. One more time. Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kodesh LeKodesh. Blessed. We're saying this, blessed be Hashem, basically, that it separates between the Kodesh, which is Shabbat, to the Kodesh of the Yom Tov. So Hashem makes that separation. So you have to be very careful. Because remember, when the husband comes home, or the father in the house, where is this Havdalah really done? It's done in the Kiddush itself. So that's why before the husband is going to do it, the wife wants to prepare, or the daughters want to cook, or the mother wants to go ahead and start lighting from fire to fire and start preparing food. They're not allowed to do so unless they said these words, Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kodesh LeKodesh. Rabotai, pay close attention. Ben Kodesh Lechol. Over here it's Ben Kodesh LeKodesh. Point number three, all the notice that we're saying whether it's going to be after Shabbat into a regular weekday, or whether it's going to be after Shabbat into a Yom Tov, it's only to allow you to go ahead and do malacha. Once you say Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, automatically you're allowed to go ahead and do any form of work after Shabbat, because this is going into a weekday. Over here, once you say Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'Kodesh, it's after Shabbat into Yom Tov, you're also allowed to do malacha. What type of malacha? Malechet ochel nefesh. Any malacha, any work which is required for food. For example, cooking, lighting from fire to fire, and so on and so forth. So this only allows you to go ahead and do their proper malachot, each one accordingly. However, aval, la'achila, but when it comes to be able to eat, asur ad sheyavdil alakos. It is forbidden for a person to eat until they do havdalah on a cup of wine. So a person shouldn't make the mistake thinking that when I say Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, just like I'm able to go ahead and do malacha, I'm able to go ahead now and also eat. No. Eating, this doesn't help. For eating, this does not help. What's going to help you for eating? Havdalah on a cup of wine. Point number 4. Minhag lidlot mayim mehabe'er b'motzei Shabbat. Now, I don't know, Rabotai, if we have this in America. I haven't seen a well in American Eretz Yisrael. You could see this. In America, I don't really know if you could even find one. There is a custom to go ahead and draw water out from the well on the motzei Shabbat. And we'll see why. Because that water, if you are able to get your hands on the be'er, on the well of on this well of water on Motzei Shabbat and drink from it, we're going to see over here, like we saw in the Ramah, also in the Shulchan Aruch, the last Halacha and Siman Reish Tzadik Tet, these waters are able to heal people. We did see Ramah said that he didn't see people are particular about this custom, but nevertheless, if you ever come across a well and you are able to draw water out on Motzei Shabbat and drink that water, you should know it's going to heal you from all your sicknesses. Okay, so let's just see these 4 points inside the book. Amirat Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, the saying Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, he below Haskarat Shem U'Malchut, is to add Hashem's name and His kingship. Meaning, all you're going to do is you're going to say Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, without having to say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Olam. All that you don't need to say. All you're going to say is Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. V'gam ein tzarich le'echos kos yain biyado kishomer ken. And also you don't need to hold a cup of wine when you're saying Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. V'chen ein tzarich lomar gam uben or l'choshech. And you also don't have to say the last bracha from Havdalah, where we say over there, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu Melech Olam, HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chosh, ben Kodesh L'chol, ben Or L'choshech. All that you don't have to say. In order to be able to do work on Motzei Shabbat, which moves into a regular weekday, all you have to say is Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. You don't need fire. You don't need a cup of wine. You don't even need to say the third blessing, the last blessing in the Havdalah bracha. Because remember, we have over there 4 blessings. You have the Borei Pri HaGefen, you have Borei Minei B'Samim, Borei Morei Ha'esh, and then you have Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. That is the 4th blessing. So you don't have to be concerned for all these things. If you want to be able to do malacha, all you got to say is Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol. That is point number 1. Point number 2, Kishachal Yom Tov b'Motzei Shabbat. When Yom Tov falls out on Motzei Shabbat, Mavdilim b'tefila ba'amirat v'tode'enu. We do Havdalah, we separate from Shabbat and going into Yom Tov in our Shemona Esrei of Aravit by saying v'tode'enu. It's actually printed inside the Sidurim. Maybe I should show it to you. See if I can find it. Yeah, that's sit around. Let me see if I can find it for you guys. It is very important to know these pieces. A lot of times when a person davens, he davens the wrong prayers, and then there's a whole shiloh if you have to go back and redo it again. I don't see it over here. Let me see if I can get a different sitter. Oh, 1 second. I do have it over here. No, I do. Yeah, I do have it. Let me see. Musaf. This is Musaf. Okay, here. So this sitter is a little bit, you're not going to be able to see it so good, but I'll try my best. Once we get to the bracha of Baruch Ata Hashem Hakel HaKadosh, then we begin with Ata Bechartanu Mikol Hamim. Ahavta Otanu V'Ratzita Banu, etc. Right over here you have to the inner Mishpatei Tzedekatecha, right over here. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's very small. Right over here. But to the Enu. Now you have to understand that this is very different than the Havdalah that we do in Arvit of Motzei Shabbat. Let me see that also. Okay. Right, when you get to the bracha Atah Chonein, over here you have Atah Chonon Tanu. This Havdalah is for Motzei Shabbat into Sunday. That what I showed you in the back of the book is from Motzei Shabbat into Yom Tov. So that's what Rav David Yosef Shlita is telling us over here. That we do Havdalah in the Shemona Esrei of Aravit by saying Vatode'enu. Umavdelim ala kos, and then we're going to have to do Havdalah on a cup of wine. Betoch HaKiddush, bebracha miyuchedet, inside the Kiddush, with its designated blessing. Ve'omer betochan, you're going to say inside the Kiddush, ben Kiddushat Shabbat, li Kiddushat Yom Tov Hivdalta, etc. Ve'chotmim ba, and you're going to conclude inside the Kiddush, Baruch Ata Hashem, Hamavdil ben Kodesh lechol. Over here I didn't put Baruch Ata Hashem, but in the Siddur itself, when you're doing the Havdalah, which is after Shabbat into Yom Tov, you're gonna, over there in the Havdalah itself, you're gonna say Baruch Ata Hashem Hamavdil ben Kodesh le Kodesh. On a regular weekday, you're gonna say, if you're doing Havdalah on a cup of wine, you're gonna say Baruch Ata Hashem Hamavdil ben Kodesh lechol. Rabotai, if you ever go to people's houses and they're not particular, meaning they don't pay attention, you'll see that they make a mistake. They automatically think you have to say over here, Ben Kodesh L'chol, because it's by rote. If a person needs to do malacha, which is for food, which you're allowed to do on Yom Tov, before doing Havdalah in the tefillah, Omer Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh leKodesh. You should say this blessing of Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh leKodesh, B'li Shem u'malchut u'mutar ba'asiyat malacha. Without Hashem's name and His kingship, and then you are allowed to go ahead and do malacha. Again, whenever we say without Hashem's name and His kingship, it means you are taking out the words Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. All that you are omitting, all you're saying is Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh leKodesh, and then you're allowed to go ahead and do malacha, meaning you're allowed to light from fire to fire. You are allowed to go ahead and now start cooking and baking and so on and so forth. But if a person went ahead and he prayed the Arvit prayer and he said V'tode'enu, mutar la'asod malechet ochel nefesh gam kodem shikadesh ve'yavdil al kos. He's also allowed to go ahead and he's allowed to do malacha, which is for food, like from fire to fire, and cooking and baking and so on and so forth, even before he does the Kiddush and before he does the Havdalah on the cup of wine. A husband comes home on Motzei Shabbat, which falls into Yom Tov. The following day is Yom Tov. Now, that meaning Saturday night is really Yom Tov. Now he wants to help his wife. But he still didn't go ahead and he still didn't do Kiddush and the Havdalah and the Kiddush. All that he didn't say. But he wants to be able to help his wife prepare the house. He shouldn't start before saying either Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, or if this guy, he went out and he prayed Aravit and he said already Vatode'enu, which is the Havdalah, which is the separation between Shabbat and Yom Tov, then we're going to tell you that he's allowed to go ahead and help his wife or help the family around and do the malacha which is required for eating for Yom Tov. However, he does say, "V'tov shebenusav al kach yomar Baruch hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol." No, see that? Baruch hamavdil ben kodesh l'kodesh, kodem sheyaseh malacha. Nevertheless, he says it is good, in addition to saying Vatodeinu in the Shemona Esrei of Aravit, it is good to go ahead and also say Baruch hamavdil ben kodesh lekodesh before you do any malacha. Now you don't have to say this. Once you say Vatodeinu, what I showed you in the back of the book, for the Yom Tov Havdalah, once you say Vatodeinu, you're allowed to do malacha, meaning malachat ochel nefesh, malacha, which is for food for Yom Tov. However, Rav David Yosef still says it is good to not only say Vatodeinu, but also just say Baruch hamavdil ben kodesh lekodesh, and then go ahead and do the malacha. It doesn't cost you anything to go ahead and say this. Point number 3. Af al pi she'achar amirat Baruch hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol b'motzi'ei Shabbat mutar la'asot malacha kol shu achar tzet kochavim mikol makom le'inyan achila enu rashay le'chol ad sheyavdil al hakos. Even though we just learned in point number 1 that if a person says Baruch hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol, we said that he's allowed to go ahead and do malacha as long as the stars came out, meaning as long as Shabbat ended. Nevertheless, when it comes to eating food, he's not allowed to eat the food until he does the havdalah on a cup of wine. So like we explained, if you want to be able to do malacha, say Baruch hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol. You want to be able to eat, you have to do havdalah on a cup of wine. Nothing else is going to help you. If you don't do havdalah on a cup of wine, you are not allowed to eat. And so too, and so too, if you said the havdalah for the weekday after Shabbat, which is the atachon ontanu in the Shemona Esrei of Aravit, you are not allowed to eat afterwards until you do havdalah on a cup of wine. Simple, Rabotai, like we explained. Last but not least, Rabotai, point number 4. Kama mirabotenu arishonim heviu minhag. Some earlier rabbis, Rishonim are very big rabbis, Rabotai, not our, it's prior. It's the earlier rabbis, they brought a custom, l'delot mayim ha'be'er b'motzei Shabbat, that one should draw water from a well on Motzei Shabbat, ubefrat mimei Yam Kinneret, especially from the Yam Kinneret, from the waters of the Yam Kinneret. V'hi segula tova lirifui hacholim, and it's a good segula to heal the sick people. He brings down over here in the footnotes in Shar Tziyun in Od Pei Gimel. He says, I'm not going to give you all the sources, I'm just going to give you 1 or 2. He says, Ken katvu ha'orchat chayim ve'akolbo. The Orchat Chaim wrote this, and the Kolbo, they wrote this. Shenagu anashim ledlot mayim b'motzei Shabbat. Take of achar beruchu, that woman would have a minhag to draw water on Motzei Shabbat from a well immediately after they said Baruchu in the shul. Why? Because we find in the Agada, shebe'er shel Miriam beyama shel Tveria, because the well of Miriam is in the ocean of Tveria. V'chol Motzei Shabbat, and every Motzei Shabbat, machzirin ko al kol be'erot. This water would encircle all the wells, v'akol me'ayanot, and all the springs. V'chol mishu cholev v'izdamen lo mayim v'yishteh. Anybody who is sick and this water is going to come across him and he's going to drink. Afilu kol gufo muches shchin miyad nirpa. Even if his whole body is full of boils, immediately he's going to heal. V'sheken hayam aseh, and so too, that's how the story went. Ubebeit Yosef hevi divrei HaKolbo. The Beit Yosef actually brought the words of the Kolbo. However, like we mentioned in the beginning of the class, v'arama behaga hevi minhag zeh. The Rama in the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Reish Tzadik Tet, towards the end, he brought this minhag, but he concluded, v'lo ra'iti l'minhag zeh. He said, I didn't see anybody who's particular about this custom to go ahead and draw water from the well. Nevertheless, Rabotai, Rav David Yosef Shita says, some earlier rabbis, they brought down this minhag to go ahead and do it. Especially if you are able to do it from the waters of the Yam Kinneret. And it's a very big sugula in order to heal a person. Like I mentioned before, I don't know if there's wells over here. I don't know if you could even find spring water over here. But if you are in a place where you could go ahead and find spring water or well water, and it's after Motzi Shabbat, try to go ahead and drink that water. Any sicknesses you have, lo oleinu chas v'shalom, nobody should ever be sick. But if for whatever reason a person is not feeling well, not doing well, if you drink that water, it's going to go ahead and heal you. Rabotai, with this we do conclude the whole Chazara for Siman Reish Tzadik Tet, Shechiyanu, Vikimanu,